What if Total Drama Revenge of the Island never got a new cast? The original 22 contestants are regarded as the best cast Total Drama has ever had, and rightfully so, with characters like Owen, Gwen, and Heather. But, as the first few seasons went on, you could tell the writers were struggling to keep things interesting with the original cast. Characters like Trent in Action or DJ in World Tour had such forced plot lines because the writers didn't really know what to do with them. The two new characters in Total Drama World Tour, Alejandro and Sierra, kept things fresh and interesting, as the rest of the cast was constantly getting trapped in unfavorable plot lines. So, the writers creating an all-new cast, in all honesty, wasn't that bad of an idea. The Revenge of the Island cast isn't all too bad. It has some of my favorite Total Drama characters ever, like Dawn and Lightning. But, let's be honest here, these guys were never topping the original cast. So, what if Total Drama Revenge of the Island had the original 22 contestants? Now, to get the most obvious thing out of the way, this season has to be 26 episodes. A lot of the later seasons only have 13 episodes, which just isn't enough to fully flesh out your characters, and everyone seems so strapped for time in such a short season. I'll also be including Alejandro and Sierra in this imaginary season. But wait, isn't Alejandro in the robot suit? Yeah, and I'll be rewriting a bit of World Tour here too. I won't be disregarding any major plot points like the Duncan, Gwen, and Courtney love triangle, but trust me, we'll get to that later. But Alejandro getting completely burned alive at the end of World Tour or Ezekiel going completely feral just won't happen. I never liked the fact that these two characters suffered such physical deformities because they were messed up on a reality TV show. And yes, everyone is coming back. I understand why seasons like Action and World Tour cut contestants, but for this season, if we're going back to the original island, I want every character back. Oh, and also, no Aftermath episodes. With both Jeff and Bridget competing, there's nobody to host the Aftermath. Well, except for Blamely, but let's be honest, who likes Blamely? And lastly, I'll be getting rid of the toxic waste all over the island. I always felt like that made the show feel too unrealistic, and characters like Dakota becoming fully mutant just never sat right with me. But enough introduction, let's get into how I'll handle some of the unfinished plot lines from Total Drama World Tour. In my perfect canon, Total Drama All-Stars would not exist, so I can give proper conclusions to a lot of the character derailments in World Tour and All-Stars. And it's time to address the elephant in the room, the love triangle. In Season 1, Duncan and Courtney were my favorite couple. I loved their character dynamic, and the boathouse scene is still amongst one of my favorite Total Drama moments. But even I have to admit, they weren't meant to last forever. And Duncan voting off Courtney in Action, you could argue, was an indirect breakup. In the finale of Action, however, Duncan and Courtney get back together, so hooray! But in the Celebrity Manhunt special, suddenly it's revealed that Gwen has feelings for Duncan? Now, I was never the biggest Gwen fan, but what the writers did to Trent in Action was just unforgivable. When Gwen was asked in Truth or Anvil if she had feelings for Duncan, she said no, and that anvil never fell, meaning she was telling the truth. So it was completely out of left field when we're supposed to believe that Gwen had feelings for Duncan the entire time. Now, to give the writers credit, it is hinted at a bit in the earlier episodes of World Tour, but Duncan quits in episode 2, leaving both Gwen and Courtney. Now, Duncan is gone just long enough for Gwen and Courtney to develop a friendship, right before... With no proper build-up to why Duncan and Gwen might like each other, they kiss the same episode Duncan returns. Now, I could go on for days and days about why this was a poor writing decision, but to keep it brief, I don't like how the writers had Duncan and Gwen kiss so soon after his return. The truth comes out the next episode, and within 2 more episodes, Gwen gets eliminated. So, the rest of the time Duncan and Courtney are on screen, they hate each other until they both get voted off. But then, in Total Drama All-Stars, Duncan is suddenly obsessed with Courtney again. Well, Courtney she actually doesn't really care about Duncan, but she still hates Gwen and the whole thing is just a mess. So, how would I fix this? Well, the answer is simple. Gwen and Duncan breaking up is obviously the desired outcome here, but I don't want Duncan and Courtney to get back together. After the events of World Tour, it's near impossible to write about them gaining feelings for each other again. But I think all that needs to happen is another boathouse-inspired scene where Duncan, Courtney, and even Gwen all talk it out. It's not too out of character for any of them, and I think it might give closure to such a messy plotline. I feel the outcome of this conversation is Gwen breaking up with Duncan for Courtney to gain trust in Gwen again, bringing back an honestly great friendship between the two. Now, obviously, Gwen and Duncan can't win this season. They were both finalists before, and ideally one of them would be eliminated probably before the merge. But I think all that really needs to happen is just one conversation to straighten everything out between the three, and I don't have to lose sleep over this. Now, onto the other major plotline in World Tour, Alejandro and Heather. Unlike Duncan, Gwen, and Courtney, I love how the romance between Heather and Alejandro was handled in World Tour and even All-Stars, but I think to keep things interesting, I'm going to hold off on them getting together so soon in this season. I mean, hell, even All-Stars waited until the finale for these two to finally start dating, so it's not too out of left field. I love the dynamic of Heather and Alejandro in World Tour, but after Heather kneed him in the nuts and robbed him out of $1 million, it's kinda hard for him to trust her again. Subsequently, however, it's kinda hard for Alejandro to be trusted by, well, the entire cast. Now, at this moment in time, everyone should have a decent respect for Heather. Aside from a few people like Noah, she was the only one who figured out Alejandro's facade very quickly and was the only one able to take him down. At least characters like Lashana should have some kind of respect for her now. I mean, the 2 out of Truth in Action that World Tour kinda just forgot about. So, with the entire island hating Alejandro and Heather at least having a only mildly tarnished reputation at this point, I think it's a great idea for Heather to now use her decently respectable credibility to return as the main antagonist this season. Or at least try to. It makes sense really, because from Island to World Tour, Heather didn't really change. She's still a BITC, and the only reason why we root for her in World Tour is because there's an even greater threat this time around. But Alejandro, he has Heather figured out, and with no allies, he needs to be the scrappy one. Pre-merge, I would love to put Heather and Alejandro on the same team, as it would prevent either of them from going home too early. But once merge hits, the target is on their back, especially Alejandro. But remember, Heather still likes Alejandro, so getting rid of him isn't too easy on her. But while Alejandro still might be the main target here, there are still an array of people who hate Heather. The characters she's done wrong in the past, like Eva, Beth, and Gwen. So ultimately, these two are in a repeat of World Tour and have to work together at some point in the season. But when you combine fire with fire, it only creates more fire. And taking inspiration from one of the handful of things All-Stars actually does right, Alejandro betrays Heather, outstars the antagonist she is, and this time robs her out of $1 million. This would be such an engaging storyline to see unfold, and I would kill to see a season of Alejandro and Heather going back and forth as past rivals, alliance buddies, but ultimately, one has to win, and this time, Alejandro gets Heather voted out. God, that just makes me so excited thinking about these two returning for a season. But what about the characters that didn't really get to do much in Islander action? Eva and Katie and Sadie have never competed in a season since Island, and if you were expecting me to provide something interesting for Katie and Sadie, yeah, I really don't, but hey, maybe they could be this season's double elimination? As for Eva though, I can genuinely see her getting decently far this season, with great athletic ability, and I can even see her getting a little arc where she becomes less angry all the time and warms up to people, maybe even becoming better friends with Izzy and Noah like in the Drama Island special. And to continue tradition, Ezekiel will be voted out first, but I do think he should be this season's rejoining contestant, and with his time away from the island, he's actually became a decent contestant, doing fairly well in challenges and maybe even getting decently far before getting out again. And Trent. So, I didn't mention him in the love triangle segment that much because while I could see him being friends with Gwen, I want him to branch out from just being Gwen's boyfriend, and I think he should have a funny alliance with the Drama Brothers. This seems right up the alley for comedic potential. Justin, Harold, Cody, and Trent, all becoming best bros working together this season. But with Cody as part of this Drama Brothers alliance, what do we do with Sierra? Well, I think the smartest choice is just to eliminate her early. She doesn't really serve much of a purpose aside from being Cody's stalker, and since the show clearly doesn't do anything with her knowledge of other contestants, I think it's just best to have her get out early. And really quick side note, but can we have Chris not degrade into utter insanity here? In season 1, he was a cool guy. He clearly cared about his contestants, maybe a little too much, and even in action tried to save them from near death. But as the show went on, he genuinely tried to kill his contestants, and it just isn't enjoyable to watch. Bring back season 1, Chris. And finally, what will the finale be this season? Now, let's get the obvious contestants out of the way, because there's no way a previous finalist is making it to the finale this season, but let's also run through some characters that I just don't see making it to the finale this season. Tyler is a funny character, but with his limited intelligence, his team will probably just vote him off. But if not, I don't see him getting any closer than like the final 10. In this canon, I still want the Redonkulous race to happen, but I don't see Noah competing in that if he wins this season. But I do see him getting decently far though. Lashana and DJ are two characters I would love to see make it far, as they have before in Island, but they don't scream finale to me. I would love to see Lindsay make it to a finale after she was robbed of it in action, but realistically, I don't see her getting further amongst crazy competition. I don't see Izzy, I don't see Bridget. Jeff goes on to win the ridiculous race, so he wouldn't win this season. And amongst the drama brothers, Cody is really nothing without Sierra, so I just don't see him getting far. Justin is too concerned with his physical appearance, which will probably result in him not trying to help his team in fear of damaging his body. And Trent just won't make it to the finale, let's be honest here. Which leaves two characters, Courtney and Harold. This seems more like Duncan's nightmare than a finale, but hear me out. Now, you could argue that I only put these two in the finale because they're amongst my favorite Total Drama characters, and you'd be right, but I also think there's some in-canon reasons why this would make sense. In both Island and Action, Courtney and Harold are eliminated back-to-back, and Courtney's elimination in Island is all Harold's fault. For that minor plot point in Island to come full circle in this season, I just think it's poetic in a way, and I would love to see it happen. Let me know how you guys would write your own Total Drama season in the comments. What did you agree with in this video? What did you disagree with? Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel while you're at it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in